inevitable.
All right, Paul.
All right, let's go to Tracy in Ohio. Tracy, thanks for your call. You're on the BetUS caller line.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, look, the hottest seat from this week is Steve Sarkisian from Texas. Here's why. They lost to a mid-grade SEC squad, and they're supposed to be joining the SEC. I think as far as expansion goes, you want to add those 4 teams next year because you want to give Steve Sarkisian one opportunity to beat some of these teams. If he can't beat these teams coming into the league, when they make the jump to 2023 with Oklahoma, I don't see him there because losing in the fashion he did to Arkansas, which is still rebuilding, is quite disastrous for him. If you ask me this early, I mean the rest of the season, if he goes 7-8 wins, I mean what are we talking about here? It's supposed to be Texas, right? USC in the same boat too. I mean Clay Helton got to go. I mean these supposed to be the Blue Bloods, right? I mean, the Alliance ain't looking too hot right now with Ohio State going down either. So, Big 12 looks like it's slowly creeping in. We're going to see Cincinnati against Indiana and Notre Dame. If they win out, I mean, Texas got to look really, really bad for the season.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Sarkisian's getting, at least 3 years. Unless he goes just disastrously off the rails, which I don't foresee that happening. He's going to have time. It's only game number 2. You can always say, well, I got to get my guys in here, right? And you always got the mulligans of changing assistant coaches at least once as well. We saw Tom Herman run through that before he was eventually, totally out of excuses. So, I do think, to your point, that there's maybe a totally different feeling or a little bit of a different feeling amongst the Texas fan base after what they witnessed versus last Monday. Certainly, that Lafayette win, it wasn't perfect by any means, and there was reasons to believe like the O-line was going to be an issue before they'd even played a game that was potentially an issue. But the way they just got beat around on Saturday, and that final score wasn't even indicative of how bad it was. That's what's concerning because, like you said, that's not like the top power in the SEC. That's not even the top 5 power in the SEC. The good news for them, though, is they still have at least 2 years. So they have time to build up a D-line and do all of that. But in the meantime, they've also got to still win in the Big 12. So if anything, he's not on any hot seat at all, but it at least gives him that first little mark against him. You know what I mean? Where they're going to hold on to that one depending on what happens moving forward. And so, no threat of him being gone anytime soon. And you got to give him some time. But that was unexpected. I mean, not that they lost, but the way they lost. How badly they lost. That was what was unexpected to me.
It's one thing to just you lose a game at a shootout. It's one thing if you throw up all over yourself. I know Dicker dropped a snap, and that was costly. It's another thing when somebody beats you up. Mm-hmm. And that's somebody in Arkansas. Yes, these teams have played each other for a long, long time. They got beat up. And now you're going back and forth with your quarterback. If Casey Thompson comes in and performs well, then what happens against another team when he doesn't play well? And then all of a sudden that can divide your team. I'm not saying it will, but it can. But they got beat up. Arkansas beat them up. It's like Oregon. It's not that they beat Ohio State. It's they shoved the ball down their throats for almost 300 yards or so rushing, or maybe it was 365 yards rushing, whatever it was, maybe even 265. They got beat up. That's hard to deal with. It's one thing to lose. You have things. It's another thing when somebody physically beats you up. And for Texas, that's got to be an alarming situation.
Yeah, it ended the honeymoon quickly. It ended the honeymoon after 1 week.
Welcome to Austin, Texas.
Yeah, it was great last week and all of that. But, yeah, they've got to figure out the quarterback situation. That'll be very interesting to watch on Saturday. Now, how much do we really know after they beat up on Rice? I don't know. But if Casey Thompson goes in there and is able to move the offense and looks good doing it, then, maybe he's the guy moving forward. Card's still young, so you really don't want to damage him too much early on. You know what I mean? If he's not going to be as effective, Thompson's probably the right call. But yeah, definitely an eye-opening loss for sure on week 2.
I know we got to take a break. A couple of real quick chats from James. After Skylar Thompson went down Saturday, Kansas State went from what was a video game ranking in the mid-'80s to the equivalent of an NFL Europe team. Will Howard is just not going to get it done.
Look, they started off hot last year with Skylar Thompson, beat Oklahoma, right? Early last year. My years might be confused, but they started off hot, and then he got hurt, and it all went downhill after that. It was up and then like a chart, just all the way up and then all the way down. So yeah, that's horrible news for them. The only good saving grace is that it's not season ending, but the fact that he is going to miss a few weeks, that's incredibly concerning for K-State, no doubt about it.
Nathan Sharp, another aspect that helps the Big 12 in giving these 4 teams coming in time is to recruit depth, pitching that they're going to be a part of the future Big 12, and also help make it more seamless. It would be bad if they sucked upon entry, and some teams might do well. TCU early on, they were in a good run and did well immediately in the Big 12, but it's always something. It's not that you can beat somebody. It's one thing if you could beat teams week in and week out. And the 4 incoming teams are good. Don't get me wrong, they are. But there's a depth issue that you have to work with. A&M is just now basically almost getting to that point, and it's been almost a decade. Not